Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another webinar delivered by SCORE Minnesota. Today, we are pleased to have Susan Mell, our guest speaker, to discuss franchise misconceptions. In a few moments, we'll turn it over to Susan for the presentation, but for now, a brief overview of SCORE. For anyone who is new to SCORE and who has not perhaps had an opportunity to discover SCORE or even join from either a mentor or a mentee capacity. SCORE is a nonprofit organization that is independent resource partner of the U.S. SBA, the Small Business Administration. More than 60 years right now, since 1964, SCORE has assisted over 11 million clients and small businesses across the country. We are very proud to have this as our guiding mission. We provide these resources completely free of charge. In a matter called confidential business mentoring, we assist a variety of small businesses, whether it be in the startup phases or the growth phases or even the closeout phases. So we are part of that entire life cycle. And we provide these business educational services as you are seeing today, including many local workshops and webinars. Today's webinar will be recorded and you will receive a replay link along with a copy of the deck if you'd like to refer to it for a future purpose. So we have more than 90 volunteers that are serving the Manatee and Sarasota counties here in Southern Florida, and we are also very proud to be part of the local community for more than 50 years. As I noted earlier, SCORE is able to help you navigate the entire business process. So whether you are thinking about launching a business, you are in the research phase, you're looking into understanding what is required from a regulatory process or meeting specific rules and regulations, whether you have already started and you look to grow the business, or even if you are looking to exit the business, we're here available for you if needed. Just take a moment to highlight some of the sponsors who make this possible, today's webinar, as well as many other activities that SCORE Minnesota sponsors. These are our local community partners. I'm sure you've seen many of those and familiar with many of them as well. We are grateful for their support and for their also help with any of the programs that you're seeing, whether it be online or in person. For anyone who's interested in our services, you can go to our website. You can also click on Request a Mentor, score.org/Minnesota. Fill out a form, let us know what type of business you are either thinking of launching, or if you have an existing business, what are some of the challenges you might be facing. This way we can align a specific mentor with your needs. Our mentors come from a very diverse background. Many of them are retired executives who have run companies in a variety of stages of growth. So to be able to help you provide some of that guidance and as well as background expertise. And we will have an opportunity today to take care of your questions. You'll be able to submit them via chat. And also you can use your mobile device to scan the QR code if you wish to apply to become a mentor for SCORE, if you'd like to share your expertise and background and help other small businesses in the area. So in a moment, we're going to turn it over to Susan to help deliver the presentation. A brief background about Susan. This is not the first time that we've had her deliver a webinar for SCORE Minnesota. We are very proud of bringing her back. And also, Susan, thank you for being gracious with your time. For those who may not know, a bit of background about Susan, who's been a successful entrepreneur since the age of 28 and has spent the last 23 years helping others achieve their business dreams. As a franchisee with the Entrepreneur Source, she once owned 11 franchises as a multi-unit franchise owner. With her deep expertise in the franchise industry, Susan specializes in guiding individuals through the process of discovering franchise opportunities they may not find on their own. What sets Susan apart is her commitment to her clients. She offers her services at no cost, helping them explore a range of franchise options that align with their goals. With that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Susan. And again, for those who are on the call today, thank you so much for making the time. Please feel free to submit your questions via the chat window.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And welcome everybody. Happy Monday. And thank you so much for taking your day and lunch hour perhaps to attend this presentation. So I'd like to share my screen and hopefully, can you see this? Everybody can see this?
Yep, it's all good. We can see it.
Okay, I love it. Everything's been working well today. I love it to start the week off this way. So my name is Susan Mell. I'm in a franchisee, actually now going on 24 years with the Entrepreneur Source. We're a franchise coaching business and a franchisee as well, helping people for free explore franchises. And our value is to help you learn about options you may not discover on your own, because today you're finding out there's 4,000 franchises in 80 different industries. So it could be like a needle in a haystack. But my goal today, if nothing else, is you walk away looking at franchising maybe differently than you did before this presentation. I am going to talk about what has changed over the years. As was mentioned previously, I've been a business owner since I was 28 years old. Everybody has a cell phone. Well, I got into the cell phone business when they first turned it on here in Tampa, actually 3 months before the service was turned on. So I was sort of right time and right place. And I grew my business to 4 locations with 42 employees, did about 8 million in revenue, and utilize all sorts of mentor services. So I'm a big fan of mentorship and being open to coaching and willing to learn new things. So today, let's dive into what's changing in franchising. Now, let's see, I'm not changing my slide. Here we go. So we're going to talk about business ownership, obstacles that get in the way, some of the advantages of being your own boss, some of the misconceptions about franchising, what is franchising, and whether franchise ownership is right for you. And that was a big concern that I had from being an independent business owner. Could I be a franchisee? Part of the entrepreneur's educational experience is to help you define your income, the lifestyle you like to have. Wealth could not just be about money. I call that priceless possibilities. Having your weekends off and evenings and holidays, or maybe even looking at franchises where you have the summer off. That's a real priceless possibility. Equity, number one reason to own a business is to grow it and sell it, have an appreciating asset. What kind of support are you going to receive in owning a franchise? Talk about the education experience, the training, and the proven model. So today, I'm assuming everybody that's on this presentation is considering, or currently maybe you're all your own boss now. As you know, you have choices. You can start your own business. If you have I call those inventors. There's different types of entrepreneurs. So you can be an inventor. You have a good idea and you go out and develop it. You can buy an existing business, or you can be a franchisee. I will say that I've been more of I call it an implementer entrepreneur. I was an agent for the wireless carrier, so that wasn't my idea. Now I'm a franchisee. I do believe there's inventors who people have great ideas and they start their own business. And I think you can be what's called an entrepreneur, where you are a CEO, you run other people's organizations. So there's a lot of different ways to be your own boss. I always like to start pretty early in the presentation with the funding, because this is something that's changed that we didn't have when I started 24 years ago, which is and this is why many of my clients will invest in a franchise versus doing something independently, because if you don't have experience in that industry, you probably will have difficulty getting an SBA loan. I don't know if that's true for an existing business, but it is true for startups, especially if it's a restaurant. Banks aren't a big fan of funding restaurants. So the SBA has got a registry list for franchise. So long as they're on the registry list, most of the franchises that we work with at the Entrepreneur Source are already pre-approved. So this is a loan up to $150,000, which is more than what you'll need really for a service-based business. It's only 10% down. So for $15,000, you can get a loan that will cover your franchise fee, your working capital the first year, and even a salary to pay yourself during the ramp up phase. So the average franchise fee is between $50,000 to $60,000. You'll need another $30,000 to $40,000 of working capital, so you make sure you have enough money for marketing and, paying your cell phone, your internet, those business expenses, and then a salary to pay yourself until the business starts earning money. The loan takes about 6 weeks, which is really fast. Most SBA loans are 90 days and require that you put the home up as collateral. That's not the case. This is a business line of credit. If you are a veteran, you'll save 50% on the bank fees. So this is a really great program and one of the many funding options that's available for funding your business. If you wanted to schedule a time to speak with me about funding a business idea you have, I'd be happy to talk with you about that. But I just wanted to highlight this particular loan because it's something that most people aren't familiar with. So why do only 5% of people make it happen on their own? Why do only 5% of people become their own boss? We call it fear, and this is a great slide, right? False evidence appearing real. So keep that in mind that sometimes your perceptions or the information that you currently have may not be fact-based. So always be curious when you're an entrepreneur. Always be open to coaching. What can business ownership bring? What does that provide you? Isn't this interesting how we help the economy, how we create jobs, and maybe some other priceless possibilities personally for you as well. But I think it's very satisfying that you're helping others in their career. Some people like to be owner operators, but some people find that they can grow a bigger business by having employees. But I hope this slide really helps you identify some of the opportunities that business ownership in general just provides to the economy. I asked my franchise to add this slide to this presentation because I thought this was a really great forward look to what's going to be happening to how many people are going to be self-employed in the US. And I don't know if many people see this information, but it really impressed me. So I hope you're impressed with this information as well, that 10.3 million people will be self-employed. So 7 questions to ask yourself. I think not only in just starting a franchise, but actually starting your own business. Are you willing to follow a system? System stands for saving you time, energy, and money. To surprise you that number 2 is, are you willing to work hard? I have many clients say to me that they're not really wanting to work that hard. So, business ownership may not be for you if you're not willing to put the hours in initially. And I'm not necessarily saying 80 hours a week. I do believe in working harder, not smarter. Do you have access to startup capital? I always help my clients with the funding options at the very beginning of our relationship so that anything that my clients are exploring, they can be sure that they can get funded if they find something they're excited about. And being able to support yourself during the early months. That's really important. If you're planning on replacing your income your first year, in a business, that might be challenging. So that's why even if you're in between jobs, you need to be able to, have 9 to 12 months of living expenses if you're in between jobs, because it's taking that long to find jobs nowadays. Are your family and friends supportive? I think it's more important that your spouse is supportive. I'm not necessarily sure if your friends need to be, because when I got in the cell phone business, everybody told me that it wasn't a great idea. But then when I had 4 stores and 42 employees, everybody said how smart I was. Then I invested in a franchise and everybody said, what do you need a franchise for? Now everybody asks me, what's the hottest franchise? So sometimes when you're in a place of change, your friends and family are not necessarily. So they're saying, I wouldn't do this, so maybe you shouldn't do that, because they don't have the same information as you. So just don't be surprised if your your family and friends are not supportive, but your spouse obviously needs to be on board. I think sometimes your friends think that you might want to borrow money from them. So sometimes they may not be as excited about the idea. And are you willing to do whatever it takes to ensure success? And in our franchise organization, we have we call it an ILWE. Does your business model support your ILWE, your income? What are your income goals? I find sometimes clients have difficulty identifying what they really want to be earning. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? What wealth are you wanting to create? Do you want to include family members? You want to leave money, generational wealth to your children, and then equity. And that again, equity is about growing a business and selling it. Of course, it's hard to think of the end at the beginning, but that it really is an important step. So what are the biggest misconceptions about franchising? And this is all three that I felt before I started exploring franchising as well. So you probably have a few in mind, I would think. So let's see if they match what's going to come up on the next slide. Most are retail and often fast food. Absolutely what I thought. I didn't want to be in retail again after having 4 retail wireless stores. Definitely didn't see myself in food. Franchisers take your money and give you nothing in return. Why should I pay a franchise fee? What do I need to pay ongoing royalties for? And then you must know every aspect of running a business. When I was in the cell phone business, believe it or not, we installed car phones. You didn't hold the phone in your hand like you do today. I don't know how to install a car phone. I also, 30% of my business was a service center for all the manufacturers. I don't know how to service a cell phone. What I was excellent at was delegating and finding and hiring the right people that knew how to do the business. So that's really a hard mindset, I think, for a lot of people to grasp, that you don't have to know everything about the business to own a business. And be able to grow a business, you have to be excellent delegating. So if you're preferring to know everything about it, then maybe a business where it's owner operator to start, and then as you grow it, you can add employees. But I always tell that story about installing car phones, because when I got in the cell phone business, actually nobody knew how to install a car phone. So I hired people that installed car stereos and they figured it out. So franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So we are a license or a trademark. So if someone says we're like a franchise, I'm not sure what they mean by that, because to be a franchise, you have to have a franchise disclosure document, because it is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So that means full disclosure about their proven business model, how many franchisees have invested, how many have sold, maybe how many have left. So it gives you a lot of information, financials about the franchisor, and what your obligations are and what their obligations are to you. So it really is a win-win business relationship. You get to review the agreement, you get to ask any questions, and the average franchise agreement's around 10 years. Keep in mind, you're paying a franchise fee for a proven business model. So that means they've already figured out what works and doesn't work. So when you start the business, once you get out of training, you're implementing that business. When you start an independent business, you have to get your website together, the technology, your marketing materials, how you're going to price, and how you're going to get your clients. All that's done for you. And what's really interesting, my clients explore franchises. We start with 3 different franchises, 3 different industries, and 3 different business models. So that way they can do a comparison and contrast and get a better idea. Does franchising make sense? And if so, what's the best fit? But the good news is they get to learn all about the business. And it's really, it's like opening their doors and doing 3 business case studies. I think it's fascinating, because when you have your own independent business, you can't really call your competition. I don't think they give you a lot of information. So that's one of the things I enjoy most about what I do, is helping my clients be able to talk with franchisees, and so they can learn all about what that business will be like for them. As you can see, we're in a great growth rate in franchising. One of the reasons is people are living longer. People are, I think they said 1 out of 4 people are going to be 65 years or older in the next couple of years. So as you can imagine, some people don't want to retire for 20 or 30 years. They want to continue being productive, or maybe they don't feel like they have enough money to retire. A lot of different reasons people continue to work later in their life, and it's continuing to help franchises grow as well, and create jobs. So hopefully you're impressed with these figure and this information, because it shows you how strong franchising is in the business world. This gives you a general idea of the different types of businesses. I focus primarily on service-based, which I'm going to define a little bit more specifically in a moment. But you'll see 80% of businesses have nothing to do with donuts, which means they're not retail or food business. They're business services. And what do those look like specifically? Business services can be consulting services, financial services, and not necessarily, a financial advisor, but there are other opportunities in financing, in consulting, as well as home-based businesses. A lot of businesses don't require that you have an office. You can work out of your home. Education and training, cleaning and maintenance, children's products, senior care services, all these topics, all these industries. Then could be 20 to 30 to 50 franchises in that industry. So that's my value, is to help you to define that. What does that look like? When you think of children products and services, are you just thinking daycare? Are you thinking education? And there may be some other things you hadn't thought about. And that's the value of exploring franchises with the franchise coach, to identify those things that you may not be familiar with. Probably didn't realize there was a franchise that does franchise coaching and franchise matchmaking. Why franchising? Why do a lot of people consider this as their second and maybe third career choice? Because all the startup work is done for them. They're implementing a proven business system. They have guidance from the franchisors. Again, being in business for yourself but not by yourself. And brand recognition, sales and marketing, training, and you have support of the other franchise owners as well. So that was one of the things I really enjoyed. After having my own independent business, I felt like I was alone on the island. And then I was able to become a franchisee and be part of a team and be more collaborative. And that really resonated with me. I didn't realize how much I was missing that. Thought this is an interesting slide, that this is a high percentage of people that said they would do franchising again. I think that's much higher. If I looked at statistics of people that owned a business and whether they would do it again, franchising has a much higher success rate. And the fact of, again, that they're in collaboration with others and like-minded people within the organization. We only work with franchises that have a very high success rate. So the Entrepreneur Source, we work with the top 200 franchises in all the different industries. So we really help to narrow it down and create a focus of the best for our clients. So this is an interesting slide about territories, because when you have a service-based business, most of the time they have a territory. So you want to understand, what is your territory? Why do they define that territory that way? And that way it's exclusive just to you. And whether you can negotiate a territory, it depends. Some of the newer growing franchises are more flexible than the well-established, but I always believe it doesn't hurt to ask. I also work with virtual franchises. The Entrepreneur Source, which I own, is a virtual franchise. So I'm able to work with clients all over the country, gives the ability to travel, work from anywhere, and work with clients anywhere. And so that might be of interest to you, to have a business that's virtual. I said this previously, but you're in business for yourself and not by yourself. And that's another reason that people invest in franchising. You got to be open to coaching, willing to learn new things, and willing to change. What do you get for the fees that you pay for? We've talked about that proven business system, the initial training, but also the ongoing training and support. Even today, after 24 years, I still attend our different training that we have on a monthly basis because either it confirms that I'm still on the right track in working with my clients, or I need to fine tune something that maybe I got off track with, but just calling it sharpening the saw, keeping your talents sharpened. What kind of business software and technology does the franchise use? I'm pretty sure that most of us would not be able to spend the kind of money these franchise organizations spend on technology, the best of the best. What kind of marketing campaigns and materials? If you connect with me on LinkedIn, if you get on my calendar, you'll be getting our weekly newsletters and also our social media postings, which are educational postings about business ownership and franchising. I get raving compliments, and that comes from being part of a franchise and having a great marketing program. If you have equipment with the franchise, will they help you with, getting volume discounts for the equipment? If it's retail, they help you with site selection, build out assistance. Again, we talked a little bit about financing SBA loans, but there's other programs as well. And then what kind of future vision and growth plans does that franchise organization have? Keep in mind, these franchise companies did really well during COVID because, again, that business for yourself, but not by yourself, and having all that collaboration to help work out how to move forward profitably. Several different areas of how you can invest in a franchise. One, you could be a single unit owner, operator. You could be a semi-absentee owner, which you would need to invest more money because you would need to hire someone to run the business unless you had a partner or a family member. And then absentee owner really comes when you've owned the business for a long time and it's established and you're able to really just hire someone and let them run it for you. But that comes down the road. That doesn't happen at the beginning. Multiple units can be multiple territories if it's service-based. If it's retail, multiple locations. Another way to growth, you can be multi-brand where you own several different brands. And then you can develop a whole area and develop it yourself, whether it's the state or the whole city, if you'd like. So where do you begin in exploring business ownership? Whether it's a franchise or not, you need to define what your ILWE is. What is your income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity? Make sure you get the education and get all the information before you come to any conclusions. We do a behavioral assessment for free. You receive a copy of it, and we focus on your primary driving motivators because if the franchise matches your motivators, that's what gives you the enjoyment of what you do every day. Validation means you're talking with franchisees. And then once you made the selection of the franchise, then finalizing the funding and then off to success. Far too many give up their dreams of self-sufficiency. So is it possible that if you try to avoid a risk, you'll also avoid the opportunity? So I always like to say, if you don't mind risking a little bit of your time to learn something new, the worst that can happen is you'll look at franchising differently than you do today. That's what happened to me. I wasn't that interested in franchising. Look what happened. Here I am 24 years later, speaking with you today. So we're going to go over any questions you have, but I do want to say, if you wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn, all my contact information is on my contact info. I have recommendations at the bottom of my profile of people I've worked with recently and in the past. So you can see what they invested in, what their background experience is and what they invested in. Because 95% of my clients that do move forward with the franchise move forward with one they would have never considered on their own. And by the way, if you're a veteran, not only do you save 50% on the bank fees for an SBA loan, you also save up to 30% on the franchise fee as well. So please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's take a look at the chat.
Thank you, Susan. There was a question about connecting with you, but I think you mentioned that
Okay.
participants can join you via LinkedIn.
Okay, One of the things that I'll share with you since we have a few more minutes, there is another funding option, and this you could use for whether it's a franchise or your own idea. And again, I could connect you with the companies that do this. I would tell you that 80% of my clients that invest in a business, this is how they fund their business. It's called rollover for startup businesses, where you can actually convert money from your retirement. Instead of buying shares of stock in Wall Street, you can actually buy shares of stock in your own company with no penalty. Excuse me, Peter Thiel, who started PayPal, that's how he funded PayPal, was through rolling over some of his money. So you're taking a passive investment and making it into more a reactive investment. So if you're making, let's say, 10% on the average in the market, you're looking at franchises making 30 to 35% return on investment, you might say, well, that's a better use of my money. Plus, you have something you can grow and sell. So I had a client that actually was referred to me by Score in Sarasota, and Score, Minnesota, I mean, and she was located in Sarasota. She spent $100,000 on a business. That was the franchise fee and working capital the first year. She sold it 8 years later for 1.8 million. She made about $500,000 the last several years she owned the business. So her total return on investment from the 8 years she owned it and what she earned and what she made when she sold it, she turned that $100,000 into a $3.5 million return on investment in 8 years. Plus, you leave your profits in your retirement and you'll never pay capital gains. So that'll save you another 20% in taxes by doing that program. So that's why a lot of people do it. But again, the SBA program, a lot of my veterans will do the SBA program because they don't have as much money in retirement. And so that's another option for them as well. So if that's something you're interested in for your own independent business or for funding an idea that you have, I'd be happy to speak with you about that as well. Little gift there, little bonus. Is that method subject to tax penalties? No, you're actually, Raymond, you're just converting your money instead of buying shares of stock in a company you don't know. You're buying shares of stock in your own company. There's no penalties whatsoever. You're just doing conversion. You can actually use your retirement money to buy rental properties with. You just can't buy vacation property or live in that. You can't use them. It has to be investment properties only. A lot of people don't know that. So hope we got a lot of, can't see people's faces, but hopefully got a lot of surprised looks on their face, maybe by some of the information I'm providing. That's the whole idea of today. Hope you learned something new. Good questions. You're on mute. You're still on mute. There you
Sorry
are.
about that. Thank you. Yeah, you can submit questions via chat or Q&A in Zoom. We'll wait for any questions to come in. Thank you for those who submitted questions. Thank you to everybody who attended. As with previous webinars, we will send out a replay deck along with a copy of Susan's presentation today. And to reiterate, we welcome any questions on the content today. You can also use the QR code that I'll display on the screen shortly to reach out to us. You can also go to score.org/Minnesota to apply for a mentor, to learn more about our services. I encourage you to do so if you're interested. So in the time remaining, we'll wait for questions, but I think we are good with questions. None appear in the chat window. Susan, I want to take a moment to thank you again for joining us today. As always, very informative presentation. A lot of great information. I've learned some new things that I wasn't aware of, so it's very apt to the title, which is what has changed, and sort of things that changed.
Yay!
So maybe come back in a few months. Maybe next year we'll see also what has developed. But in the meantime, I wish you a pleasant afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed it. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye.